Hey, welcome back to the Deeper Podcast, Fellowship family. Glad you are joining us for this week. We have Billifred Horn.
I don't think anybody's probably heard that.
I know, just
from
me.
you.
I sometimes call Bill weird names. Billifred is on the podcast, as is Brennan over here on the far side. So Brian Trias, Bill Horn. We have a male staff in their early 40s heavy podcast this week. Early 40s?
Still on the
I'm
early.
just about mid.
Yeah, you're almost
half of
mid
the
40s.
We're at mid 40s.
Yeah. Okay, glad you guys are joining us. A couple mainstays, so we don't need to do introductions. But here's my quick question of the day. Has led to a lot of controversy in my life, and so I'm
Controversy?
curious. Yeah, controversy. Yeah. I'm curious about your takes. Best fast food pizza. I'm going to need them ranked in order. Pizza Hut, Papa John's, Domino's, Little Caesars, with a brief explanation of why you think they belong.
I need a brief explanation of why this caused
I'll get to that
controversy
when I
in
give
that
you mine.
section.
Yeah. It'll be the backstory for why this even became a topic.
Huh.
What do you got?
I would say Papa John's, Domino's, Pizza Hut, Little Caesars.
Papa John's, Domino's, Pizza Hut, Little Caesars. Okay, why?
Papa John's just consistent, good, usually decent on the speed, right? Domino's.
Oh, speed as a factor.
yeah,
I like that.
just
Okay.
and that's why Pizza Hut's lower than Domino's because Pizza Hut just takes
Takes
forever.
forever. Oh, hot take.
so.
Okay, good to know.
And then Little Caesars is fast, but it's terrible.
Okay.
So,
all right.
it's good enough to go. If you're in a hurry and your kids
Yeah.
just really want pizza and
Yeah.
you
And
want
it's so cheap.
you want cheap pizza.
So cheap.
That's a good option. But
Yeah.
Domino's is kind of a good middle of the road one.
Okay. But if you're at home and it's like, hey, it's pizza movie night, whatever,
Well,
Papa John's you go
Papa
to?
John's doesn't deliver. Like it's on the opposite side of town from where I live in Southeast. Domino's is right down the street, so I can do Domino's or Pizza Hut. That's pretty much my options.
Okay. And it's pretty much always Domino's if you're
Yeah.
choosing. Okay. All right. Brian, what about you?
Domino's is number one, and it's because it has the value thing where you get the pizzas for $6.99. It was $5.99.
Yeah.
So you can get two pizzas for $13.99. It's pretty cheap.
Okay. So, yeah, money.
Money is the number one thing.
Really? Okay. Because
Yeah.
in your mind, do all four of those taste relatively similar?
Relatively similar. Now, when I was
Okay.
in high school, Little Caesars was a bigger deal because they had that pan pizza that was like
Mhm.
the
The square
rectangle.
one?
Oh, that's
Yeah,
right.
rectangle.
And
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
So many sleepovers. So many sleepovers.
Yeah, I mean that was the pizza of
Papa John's was number one in college
Okay.
because it was just coming out
Yeah.
and like it was a big deal. Everyone had Papa John's all the time.
Okay.
Pizza Hut was great when I was in elementary school and they
Yes.
had Book It.
Book it.
Yes.
Hey, this is one of my arguments for why
And you'd get those little
thought Pizza Hut was the
those little Pizza Huts. And so
the personal
I mean,
pan pizzas from
do you
Pizza Hut are
remember-
so good.
Do you remember when Pizza Hut
that's
had,
okay if it's just you.
had
Yeah,
a salad buffet?
Yes.
And like you would eat
Yeah.
in at Pizza Hut?
yeah, and
It
they would have the
wasn't
little
just-
Yeah.
games like Pac-Man in the
we did
corner
that a
over
lot in
there.
college.
And
They had one right down the street from.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was a fun dining experience. And that was the only one, I think, at the time that offered like a come sit and hang out experience.
But if
Yeah,
any of
that's
them
all
wanted
of
to
them, yeah.
sponsor the podcast, now we're
know,
talking
hey.
about they could instantly get number one.
Yeah,
Papa
easy
John's
to move up
presents
the
the.
list.
Okay, so you would
Easily
go
influenced
Papa
here.
John's, Domino's.
No,
I don't know.
Domino's.
Domino's.
Sorry, Domino's,
Papa
Papa
John's,
John's.
Little Caesars, Pizza Hut.
You know they're opening a
Okay.
new Pizza Hut over by us over on 29th. It's gonna be like
And
a,
by us, do
Yeah,
you
I
mean
say you mean your
or do you
family?
mean
my family
You're
over in
okay.
Yeah,
Southeast.
if you guys don't
Topeka.
know, the billionaire over here lives in Lake Shawnee. And
No,
billionaire is a nickname, not a
and not a
family
reality
asset.
by
Yeah.
any stretch.
Yeah.
And we are outside of that range. We're kind of northeast of the lake.
Okay, so you're getting a new Pizza Hut out there.
But
Okay.
yeah, so out on, by California, they're opening a standalone building. They were in another building shared.
Oh,
with
and now
somebody
they're
else.
like
Now they're gonna be-
becoming a bigger deal. Actually,
Yeah.
I did see that. I saw that
Yeah, it's
building
got like a
the other
little
day. Yeah.
drive-through and things like that. So,
Yeah. I grew up thinking that Pizza Hut was the best pizza that there was.
Mhm.
I didn't know that there were and I thought everything else was like
Is that
fast
because your
food
parents-
pizza,
was
and I
that-
thought Pizza Hut was like the pizza. But Book It was a big part of that. Love that, and the dining experience was a big part of that. And it wasn't until like 3 years ago that I started to get sick eating Pizza Hut pizza because of all the grease.
Yeah, it's
yeah,
pretty
it's just
greasy.
a lot of grease. But Papa John's was the youth group
Mhm.
pizza. because they gave such good deals to churches. So most of my time is eating massive amounts of Papa John's. And I can't believe neither of you mentioned the garlic sauce. Like that was the biggest.
Now that, that is, but now
The biggest
Domino's
plus.
is doing their own. They have
They
their
are?
own sauce. They have multiple kinds of sauces that you can order with your pizza.
The tough part is my wife doesn't like Papa John's. My daughter doesn't like Glory Days because she's weird. It blows my mind. And my son loves Domino's the most. So we have this weird mix of like everybody either doesn't like one or really does like one. So best pizza place in Topeka, what would you guys say? Not fast food,
I'd
but
say
just
Glory Days,
yeah, I love Glory Days.
but it is pretty greasy.
Our family can't
and
do
it's
Glory
expensive.
Days because of like there's like an acidic factor of
Oh.
something in their sauce is just it
Yeah.
just doesn't do well for our.
Yeah.
And I have esophagus issues as it is, so which we don't,
don't
need
need
to
to
go
add-
into.
Yeah, should
on
we
the
talk more about
podcast.
that?
Don't
Yeah.
need to add into the fun.
So wait, what's your go-to for a fancy
if I
pizza
had
night?
to go to one pizza place, it'd probably be AJ's.
Okay, well,
AJ's
how
is
about
good.
one that's open still? Because AJ's closed down like a year ago. What are you talking about?
No, it didn't.
AJ's the one like right there by the golf.
Western Lanes?
Yeah, Western
That
Lanes.
closed down?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. No idea.
So you guys haven't
So
eaten good
he
pizza.
really
yet?
likes it. He's eating there a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, this
well,
will be
my
it.
second answer would be Old Chicago, but then
I know,
you
also
Also
gone. That was
closed.
yeah. Somebody was asking
Yeah.
me what the good pizza places are, and I was like,
so
well,
I'd
those
say
two are gone.
if I had to have pizza, I
Spin?
would probably say Domino's.
Is
Okay,
La
would you
Roca's still
no
around?
spin.
La Roca.
Okay,
That's
come on,
absolutely
really?
it.
Okay, all right. La Roca's
No,
is
La
good.
Roca's is really,
good.
really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the time we took a missionary to go get pizza, and we took him to La Roca's when they were down on Urish and 29th. And we're like, all right, we're all going to go get pizza. We took him down there. We're getting in line. We're waiting. He's like, I think I'm going to have lasagna. We're at a pizza place.
True story.
That's so good.
It's like, what are we doing?
Oh
We're here
my
to get
gosh.
pizza. He didn't want pizza. He wanted lasagna. So,
So that's
so we
what
got him lasagna, and the rest of us had pizza.
Okay, thank you for that. That was good. I appreciate your hot takes there. Curious if the listeners are screaming in their car or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to
Strong
support.
opinions
Yeah,
everywhere.
trying to support their own.
I mean, it's pizza, guys. Like, is it really worth fighting over?
It's all good.
It's
I would eat any of those places if they
I mean,
were
we're
put in front of me.
talking small degrees of
Yeah.
variance between bread and tomato sauce and cheese on top with various.
It's hard to
toppings.
mess up.
It-
Yeah. Okay, so we are in our week 6 of 7 on our 7 churches in Revelation. We are in Revelation 3 this week. Hopefully, again, if you didn't know this podcast is supposed to be a companion piece to actually going to the weekend. So hopefully you have heard the message from Joe. It is on the church in Philadelphia. And Brian, would you like to quickly sum up kind of Joe's central heart of the message here?
Yeah. There's not a lot of bad stuff happening in Philadelphia in terms of their behavior. Not a lot to correct. They're commended for the work that they're doing. And there's door imagery that is in the letter twice and kind of Joe's using as his central theme. And so they're believing in who Jesus is. And then they have doors to go through to do ministry. And so he's asking them to hold fast and keep on what they're doing until he comes. So
Good. And then Joe's ending points are kind of, or the 2 doors he talks about, the door of the gospel, the door to salvation, basically, and then the door into ministry, further ministry and being used. So that's kind of what our conversation is going to center around today. And again, trying to give people some practical, specific handholds of what this might look like in their life. So let me start with the question to both of you. How have you guys seen God use closed doors in your life or experience in order to maybe guide you or lead you where he wants you to go?
I could start.
Billion? Yeah, go for it.
So, I've told a story about New Orleans and Hurricane Katrina. We moved there about 4 weeks before the hurricane, or in order to attend seminary. And then the storm happened. We evacuated north, and then we were kind of trying to figure out what we were going to do next. And we ended up in Jacksonville, kind of in limbo, doing temp jobs. And we started looking at transferring because the campus wasn't going to be open for a while at New Orleans. So going back to the campus was not a real option at that point. So we looked at Southeastern Seminary. There was a Greek professor that I wanted to study with there and all that. So I had talked to him about transferring over there and working underneath him. And then started the application process. And it was about 6 months after the hurricane, so leading into the spring semester. And, call over there, and they're like, "Oh, your application's not done. We sent your pastoral reference to the guy who had done my ordination counsel. He was down in Gainesville, Florida, and they sent a letter to the church. He no longer worked at the church anymore. He had left, and nobody bothered to mention it to me that, hey, we got this letter for, this guy, and he's not here anymore. And so somebody's like, well, we don't have your reference letter. I'm like, okay. So I, track all that down, try to figure out what's going on. And then we're trying to figure out housing, and we call up there, and they're like, well, we can't really tell you if we have any place for you to live until you come up here. I'm like, that's not really a great option either. So we're going to have to panic and figure out, where to live. And so it just felt like all the doors were being closed.
Yeah.
And so we had a vacation planned kind of in this gap before we had commitments again. So we got back from that, and we're like, we'll figure out what we're going to do. Maybe we'll just stay here, keep working. And that's when I had a call from the church in Lakeland that we ended up going down to before this. And so God had closed all those doors, and we really didn't know what was going to go on. And then God kind of put us back into a ministry setting, which is what eventually led us here. So
yeah. Okay. That's a great example. And again, when we're talking about closed doors for you, that's like a path that you think you're pursuing because it makes sense. It seems to be what might be the best way forward. And then you're just shown over the period of a couple crazy events like, okay, maybe this is not what God wants.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it seemed like a good option, and God doesn't leave us without reason and being able to think through things, but sometimes it takes him kind of being a little more clear with a door being shut in your face. Like, nope.
Or like 3 or 4
this looks
doors.
right, but it's not right.
Yeah.
Let's go over here.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, man.
Redirection.
Yeah, I mean, similar time frame probably for Bill. I was getting done with seminary. My wife and I really wanted to live in Texas, and seminary was in Dallas. We wanted to find a church between Dallas and San Antonio. And our parents lived in Austin, and there was a church in Austin looking for a children's pastor. And the guy who had hired me for the job in Dallas was now at that church in Austin. And so it really seemed like all the roads were pointing to this. And we were so excited. We were so excited to continue doing ministry. We were so excited to be in a town with our family and, then have kids and then grow up around grandparents and all that. And I got about 2/3 of the way through the interview process, and it was going awesome. And then it just didn't.
Did you bomb?
No. I started interviewing with a guy, and it was clear to me in the interview that he did not want me.
Oh man,
that it was personal. And I answered a question, and I just go into I answered a question with the best information that I could because I had never been in that position before. And I thought I pulled an answer out and did really well. He asked me the same question in a different way, and I went, okay, I got it. Like this isn't going to work. And so my friend called me and said, hey, I really thought you'd be a good fit, but it's not going through. Sorry, you're not going to end up here. And so my backup was, okay, well, I'll just see if my current boss, who is my mentor, will let me stay here in Dallas, and Betsy can stay at her job. And so I was like, what do you think? I can go from part-time to full-time and continue this real awesome relationship we have? He's like, no, you got to go. You got to leave. And we just were, what in the world is going to happen? And little did we know that it was like 2 weeks later, this place, called. And we never thought that we would be here for 19 years, but it's been 19 years. And so 2 doors that we really wanted to go through were just shut. And this door that we didn't want to go through was open. And it turns out to have been the best decision that we could have made.
Let me throw a curveball, because when I was thinking about my own life and closed doors, I thought some of it is this door is closed, and so that option is no longer available, and I will go in a totally different way. Some of it ended up being this door is closed for now, and then that door opens later, but things have changed. And so I was thinking about relationships, and I have a checkered past when it comes to relationships. I'm just thinking about people who might be listening to this podcast, but there was, when Lee and I began to work together as interns, I really liked her, like wanted to pursue her, but my best friend also liked her and she liked him. And so at the time I was like, man, I would love to, date her, go through that open door. Let's say that door closed in my face for that summer, which in retrospect, is a blessing because it gave me at least a little more time to mature because she was way more mature than I was. So to catch up on that front. And then the next summer, that door opened again in a new way. And man, thank God that he gave me Lee because of the impact she's had in my life and our family. And I just think, okay, that door was closed and then opened later. Do you guys have examples of that where it seemed like there was a closed door, but you just had to wait, or God opened it later? It was the same kind of opportunity.
Well, I mean, when we felt like it was time to leave Lakeland and God was kind of sending us out from there to something else, part of what prompted that was a discussion with a previous pastor from the church we were at in Gainesville doing college ministry. And he had gone to plant a church in Jacksonville, and they were kind of growing, and they got to the place where they were considering hiring a worship pastor full time. So he was the one who actually initiated that conversation and got me thinking about the possibility. You know, just kind of opened that door in my brain.
Yeah,
in a sense, right.
Yeah.
And so sat down and met with him. And I mean, part of it was, you know, he just kind of identified some changes he had seen in me from being in this kind of unhealthy situation I was in Lakeland. He just having seen me before and after, you know, he could kind of point out some stuff that he noticed. And so we started the conversation, and then I was, you know, just trying to kind of get updates from him. They were trying to figure out budget and things like that, if they could do it or whatever. And I was having to like just try to figure out what's going on, because I'm like, I'm interested in this, but is this going anywhere? And then it finally just came like they couldn't do it right then. But I was like, okay, well now I know I'm leaving, but this door that I thought I was going to go to is gone.
Yeah,
and so
that's tough.
And so we're kind of just then left wondering, God, what are you doing? You know, what the heck's going on here? And so we just started looking around, and then there were other options, but all of them were just like another kind of the same situation as we were in. And those were all closed, same kind of thing. We wanted to stay around because all of our family was down there at that time. You know, we were not looking to move cross country in any way. And so all those doors just weren't feasible options. And so it really took God, you know, and Diane has shared this elsewhere, but it really took God kind of opening her mind up to this possibility of coming out here. Like when I first came up here for the first weekend, she was just hoping it'd be a terrible experience.
I love that honesty.
and so when I called her and I was excited about how things were going and how the process was going, she's like, "Dang it!" You know, but like she had been praying during that time, like just that God would kind of soften her heart to it, and He did, and brought her around to it. But it was just funny.
Just last year, you just
no. So so God just opened a door in another place, and the way that all came about was just a different thing. But yeah,
it's a good example.
The best one that's coming to my mind is it's kind of in the middle of what you're talking about.
Okay.
And so I really have only had a few rough patches in my time here. And one of them, I remember leaving a meeting, and in my head I was like, if I ever get an offer, I will take it. I don't care where it is or what it's for, I will take it. There just wasn't offers at the time, and I wasn't in a place where I even felt like looking. But between that time and over the next 6 months, I had a lot of maturing to do and a lot of growing to do, and God changed the circumstances that I was in. And so I would say probably from that time where I thought that 9 months later, I had 3 opportunities before me. So when I wanted an open door, there wasn't an open door. And then when I had 3 open doors, I was like, no, I really believe God's best for me is to stay here. And so I chose not to walk through any of them.
Yeah.
And so I open door and closed door. I mean, it's not always good. It's not always bad. It's just trying to discern, you know, what does God have for me in the here and now? And I am not a person who looks back a ton. And so I don't sit there and go, well, I regret this and I regret that. I'm just kind of on to the next. And so, but I can tell you, I have no regret about staying here. 0.
Yeah, something you brought up in run through that I thought makes this conversation more difficult. It would be great if it was black and white. God closes a door so you know you're supposed to move to the open door, and every open door you're supposed to take, and God has a perfect plan, right? But like we just don't know a lot of the times if God's closing a door, if it's just closed for a little bit and he wants you to work on some stuff character wise, or if like it's closed forever and he really wants you to move on. Like in that moment, I like what you just said, which is the only thing we can do when a door closes is turn to God and be like, what are you wanting of me in this time? So, and it's like continual submission to whatever he's maybe trying to do at the time. But man, I'm thinking of fertility stuff for a lot of people, which feels like or singleness, an emotionally charged closed door of like, God, do you want us to pursue other avenues? Do you want us to foster or adopt or IVF or any of the other things? Or is this closed door just a temporary thing and we just need to keep trying? Because there comes so much heartbreak in that and trying to discern, okay, is God trying to tell me something? And, you know, I think the best thing to tell people in that is what you were just saying. Like, what do you think God is trying to tell you in this moment? Is there anything that you could be working on? And then just keep submitting to him, because it just seems like there's a ton of paths that that God can be trying to lead people in through those kinds of hardships. But more than anything, what he's trying to do at all times is bring you into relationship with him and dependence upon him. So just thinking, man, there's closed doors that carry a lot of weight and baggage. We generally think about our open doors as the good things, like God leading us into the great careers of our lives. But sometimes it's into difficulty. The open door actually leads into more difficulty, but for the good of the gospel going forward. So, go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, as you're talking, I'm thinking there's probably a lot of open doors that lead to bad possibilities. We're like, well, I have the opportunity to do this. I should do this. But discernment really is important, and being able to know God through his word and through prayer, and be able to have trusted people in your life that you can be like, hey, what do you see? What are you hearing? It's tough.
Yeah.
I have do we have time?
Yeah.
I have a story about being in college, and I had a friend who wanted to date a girl who was living in another city, and he was thinking about transferring. And so him and some of his friends got in a room, and they prayed all day to try to discern whether this was an open door. And they walked out of the room, and they had determined as a group that it was a closed door for him. And he was devastated. And I was like, what's going on? And I wasn't a part of it. And he told me, and I go, that's dumb. And he's like, why? And I go, well, if this is what you want, if this is what you feel God is doing, why are you letting these other two people, And so he kept praying about it and really felt it was the thing that he was supposed to do. And so ended up doing it. Married her, 5 kids, like career. And so it's hard. This open closed door thing, it's hard.
After you just finished talking about having a trusted group, they're like, this is where it goes poorly sometimes.
Yeah.
But
have a trusted group.
I would say that wasn't
do the opposite of what they say.
And I hope they never watch this. But I would say that it wasn't a trusted group. I would say that group wanted to keep their group together.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And so they weren't thinking about him. They were thinking about the group.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so tell me, on the flip side, tell me about open doors that maybe God's put in front of you that you have been unsure about, or not quite sure what it would look like on the back end, but you've chosen to walk through them, and then God has used you for fruitful ministry, for sharing the gospel, for whatever that's looked like. Give me a couple of those examples if you have them. You should start with yours.
Okay.
It's the most fun.
It is fun.
So, what was it, last March or something? A year ago, March? Lady in our church, I just use names.
Don't.
Okay, don't.
Yeah. Generally safe.
Lady in our church came and said, hey, I have an opportunity to do a chapel service where I work. And would you come and do a chapel service for Good Friday? And it's just totally not my normal element, right? Just to go with people I don't know and just do this thing. But I just felt, I think I need to do this. This is a way I can use my gifts and I can go and do it. And I went and had an absolute blast.
And this is a chapel service for older people.
For older people. Yeah. Older people who, need a little bit more help in life. And my heart just melted for them. And I found myself going, hey, if you want to do this monthly, like I'd be open for that.
You suggested that.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I thought she came back and asked. Okay.
I think I did. I think I said,
yeah.
I'm bad with some stuff like that. And then there was a lady who started coming, or her family started coming here, and she put in this person's head, we should do this on a different day of the week. And so now I'm going 2 times a month. And they say it is so rewarding for them. I have no idea. It's so much more rewarding for me. And it was an opportunity that presented itself. And I said yes. And I absolutely love it.
That's so great.
Yeah.
That's so sweet. Bill, you got something?
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, I have a hard time thinking of things for this one for some reason. But one was similar kind of setting, but not someone from our church kind of helped coordinate stuff with Love Topeka at this place. And they invited my family to come out, and basically around Christmas time, we'd go and sing carols for them on a Saturday morning.
Nice.
And just kind of all of my family playing some kind of instrument or something like that and singing these carols together, wherever. And we've done that a couple of times. It's been a few years, so I'm hoping we could do it again this year. Yeah, it's just a sweet time with them, and like you don't know the fruit that comes of it, but as they start singing along, you just you can see kind of memories awaken as they sing, that kind of thing. So it's just rewarding and kind of a little time of joy, kind of to share that with other people, and to do that as a family as well. Just there aren't a whole lot of times where we get to do that all together. I get to sing with my daughter, or my son's playing drums now, so that's a different thing too. But just to be able to do that as a family was special in and of itself. But to be able to kind of bless other people with it too. Yeah, that's the thing that's popping in my head right now.
Yeah, that's great. I have a couple. One is a door that I didn't want to walk through, which is the door of preaching. Honestly, I just remember being at the last church I was at and sitting down with the senior pastor and the executive pastor, and them being like, we think you need to do this, and me pushing back and being like, I think you should probably, if it's a gift, I think you should probably enjoy doing it. I don't enjoy doing this. And them opening the door again and again for me to walk through, but me not wanting to walk through it and being hesitant. And then some of that happening again here after coming to fellowship. And the joy now, later on the back end of having walked through that door and doing it a little more regularly, I'm not going to say that it's like awesome, great joy, but there is like a sense of purpose and deeper like meaning in it, even though it's still not the easiest thing. And then the second thing I would say is just more the way that God works in some of these easy, practical, logistical ways. So Lee and I had talked about foster care since we were engaged, really, and had pursued it slightly, but then there just seemed to be obstacles in the way. You can call them doors that were closing, but it's more like we don't have time to do this 12-week, 3 hours a week on Wednesday night class in order to become licensed to do foster care. And then COVID happened. And COVID had a lot of closed doors and a lot of open doors that are just kind of randomly throwing people off. But one of the things that happened in COVID was like everything went online. And so foster care training went from like 12 weeks to like 7 weeks on Zoom for an hour and a half. It was like a third of the requirements, and we were at home already. And we were like, okay, this is great. This is a perfect time. We feel like God might be like opening this door real wide for us to walk through. So we walked through that, obviously, and got licensed and have done foster care for 3.5 years now, which has been great. Obviously had its own trials with it, but has been really sweet. And I'm like, yeah, there are ways in which God, especially if your heart is ready for it, God will suddenly, when you're least expecting it, be like, by the way, this is now open for you if you're ready to walk through it. And I think that's true too. The last thing I'm thinking of is relational open doors. So we talk a lot about being faithful with the gospel, with the people that God puts in front of us. So neighbors, coworkers, family. I think we could probably all think of a time or a person where the door has suddenly opened in a way that we were like, wow, I've been praying for this or having conversations for years. And then all of a sudden you're coming to me and asking me like, hey, tell me more about this, or somebody's dying and I just really need assurance or faith or something like that. And it's like, okay, the door is open now. Am I going to be faithful and say what I need to say? And even if it's difficult, and walk through those. Can you guys think of any like relational open doors that have popped open for you real quick?
Well, I think that's like the ultimate door, the door that opens for salvation. But I think a lot of those open doors start with, being open to someone interrupting you while you're doing your lawn to get to know them a little bit better. And then it can go into them asking advice of like, hey, what would you do in this situation? And you giving them, a gospel lens through which to look at something. And
That's
I
a
think
great point. So you've walked through like 7 or 8 other smaller open doors to be able to get to that big one.
Yeah. And I mean, even when you are, sitting in the stands of, your kid's sporting event, there are so many doors that are there possibility for you to walk through if you can get to know someone. And that's not my normal bent. My normal bent is to go to watch the game, to kind of focus on that, but just to be available for some of those conversations, because you don't know when those conversations turn to relationships, and when those relationships turn to, hey, I can actually help you meet a need, and ultimately I have access to the answer that's going to help with all of your needs. So
yeah, that's great. Thoughts, Bill?
I mean, just along what Brian's saying, just being consistent, I think, is a big part of that. And so, are you consistently present for your neighbors or the people you're encountering? And what I mean by that is just available to them and consistently walking in faith around them, And so we had some neighbors went through a divorce, and this is kind of before it was finalized, but the husband was out, and I just walked over and we were chatting, and he kind of told me everything that was going on. And it's like I got to pray with him right then, and he asked for that to kind of asked for me to continue to pray for him. I kept checking in on him and stuff like that. And so, there's no like special fruit that I've seen come from that, but just being present for them, and available for them to, care as God shows you how in the moment, and be looking for opportunities to care for them with the gospel, So I think that's been more the pattern. I mean, I've seen things where, doing ministry, one thing that I'm a big believer in, like, if you're just kind of walking around and looking to share the gospel with people, just ask them if you can pray for them, and that kind of just.
Yeah. Both of your examples, going over to the guy and talking to him, and then going to the person to ask if they need prayer, are both, in a sense, and I don't want to mix this metaphor up too bad, but you're opening the door.
Yeah.
Now, you're not Jesus, you're not opening that door of
testing the
salvation,
door.
but you're opening the door and saying, if you want to walk through it for this conversation, for this relationship, like, I'm here for this prayer request, whatever, I'm here for you, which I think, again, is great for people who don't know how to open the door on their own for a conversation or relationship.
Well, it's just, if people are willing to have you pray for them, there's at least an openness to spiritual things. Having worked on a very, very secular college campus for several years, you'd go around and there'd be some people who absolutely not, like, get out of here. I don't want to talk to you. And then other people that you'd be surprised, and they're like, sure, yeah. And then they'll tell you about their parent or something like that, and you get to pray with them and ask them if they want to hear more. And if not, then you just move on. But it's just, you kind of just, sometimes it requires testing the doors too. You know what I mean? Can't just assume they're closed or open. I guess that's the little nuance to this. Sometimes you have to test the doors in some ways to see if they're closed or if it's just looks like that, because you can make assumptions about closed doors or open doors when it comes to relationships in particular. Like, you look at someone like, oh, they would never want to hear about this,
Yeah.
They might, but so it's worth asking the question anyway, being curious.
So Jesus refers to himself in verse 7 as the one who opens and no one will shut, shuts and no one's who open. And it's kind of a picture that, like, you can't open a door that's shut.
Right.
And I wonder how many times we spend in our lives just trying to open a door. He's not ready to open yet. And how frustrating that is. And really, it's for our own self-interest that we back up and go, okay, I'm just going to trust you. And if you don't open that door, like my heart might not be ready for that, but I'm still going to trust you in the midst of that.
Is there anything you're picturing practically when you think about how frustrating that could be to continually try to open that door?
Yeah. I what you mentioned in run through about singleness and infertility and even people who deal with miscarriage, like there's just pain there. And, dealing with miscarriage of just not knowing what's next, not knowing if that door is ever going to open. That is really hard to say, God, you're still good today.
Yeah.
And, I had a friend who was teaching the book of Job to his kids' class last week. And the reality of the book of Job is that Job doesn't know Job 1 and 2 exist other than the bad things that happens to him. He doesn't know the why. And we don't know the why. We don't know why these doors open or shut. But we're called to trust and believe and to hold fast. And I think it's good sometimes just to be able to sit with those people and just say, like, yeah, I'm sorry, this stinks. Don't know why. But how can I help you trust?
Yeah, I think a big undercurrent of this is trust in God's sovereignty, that he knows what he's doing. He has a better plan. Because I think when it comes to, I'm just picturing your seminary story, your fertility story, a lot of people's fertility story, and then marriage, even singleness. Like we walk forward into doors that we picture being open, seminary, marriage, all these things that we know are good things, right? They're not bad things, and we're walking towards them in trust that if they're not the right thing, that God will shut that door for us. But I do picture looking like an idiot, like walking towards a door and then it getting shut in my face and then be like, okay, I'm going to go over here. And then that door gets shut in my face and this door gets shut in my face. But you actually have to move forward on this. As a single person, I can tell you to trust in the sovereignty of God and his plan. But also, if you see a girl that you like and have a good relationship with her, you should probably ask her on a date. Like there's action steps that we take that is part of the process of then eventually sometimes the hurt of the door being closed in your face. So there's that mix of like, man, I trust, but I'm also going to act in the midst of this. And God is going to direct me as I'm moving. But he doesn't direct somebody standing still, right?
Well, and I think Joe does a good job of illustrating that in the life of Paul in the message. That Paul wanted to go preach the gospel in Asia. And why is that not a great thing to do?
That's a good thing.
And it says he was not permitted to do that. And he wanted to go to this place. And no, that's not, I have this place for you over here that you're going to go do. And so, yeah, you probably do feel a little bit like an idiot when you're running towards something and it slams. But yeah, you're right. Trust in God's sovereignty. It's a massive part of what we're talking about today.
Yeah. This morning I was reading Psalm 74 through, I think it was through 77, but all of them kind of have this theme of, God, where are you? What are you doing? Our world is upended. There's destruction all around. Israel is in ruins. And, the psalmist reminds himself, yet my God, my King is from of old, working salvation in the midst of the earth. And then he kind of goes on and recites, all the stuff that he did in creation and whatnot. Yours is the day, yours also is the night. You've established the heavenly lights and the sun. You've fixed all the boundaries of the earth. You've made summer and winter. And then just kind of asking the Lord to remember me, have regard for the covenant. So I think we can be tempted when a door is shut to be like, well, fine, you're not going to give me what I want. I'm out of here, But those are the opportunities where I think we need to press in and lean into God and remember that he is faithful, that he is working all things together for good. We have to remind ourselves that that's true, and so the Psalms are a great place to go for that, to find those kind of ways to express that to the Lord. So I found great comfort in that, especially in closed door times. But so I think we just have to remind ourselves of the gospel, remind ourselves what's true, even though our eyes are telling us something else. If it's something that we really want, that is a good thing, something that we long for, maybe one of the deepest longings of our heart that we're still not finding an answer for. That we need to see that as an opportunity to lean in to the Lord and trust Him more, and ask Him to be our greatest desire. And that's, that's a hard thing.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it, though. That bow on the end of like asking the Lord for Him to be our greatest desire, because that makes all of those closed doors pale in comparison of like these things that we want or think that we should. If God's your greatest desire, then you are surrendered to whatever He chooses.
Yeah.
Good stuff. I like you pointing to Psalms too at the end there. That's obviously a lot of the Psalms have gotten us through our recent closed doors of grief, but I just feel like David gives such great words to pain. So if you're experiencing a closed door right now, I'd say go search out the Psalms, man.
Yeah.
David's got great words for you.
Yep.
Use his when you don't have your own words. Use his words, which is great. Brian, will you pray for the people listening, pray for our congregation as they try to live out this message?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for your word, and thank you that it helps us see you clearly. And Father, there will probably be people here this weekend that have not walked through the door of salvation. And I pray that maybe they would have ears to hear for the first time, that they would hear your word, and they would respond to the person and work of Jesus. Lord, there's definitely going to be men and women who gather to sing your praises this weekend, and you have opened up countless doors of ministry for us. Lord, if we believe that you have placed us in families for us to be intentional, and you have placed us in the world for us to be available, Lord, there's just an opportunity everywhere to represent who you are and what you've done. And so, Father, I pray that people would just feel afresh to live into those, to say yes, to take those opportunities to do good, to say a kind word, to give someone a hug, to do what you placed on their heart, and may they see fruit from it that would cause them to take a next step going forward. Lord, thank you for just the opportunity to be in your word, to talk about your word, and I pray that, as always, your word will not return void. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. As always, thank you guys for your wisdom and humor. Appreciate it. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will catch you next week. Thanks.